Adrian Whitmore pushed the door open and instantly froze. His entire body went rigid. Standing in the middle of the room was a woman, half-dressed, staring directly at him. For one impossible second, neither of them moved. Then, her eyes widened in horror. "Oh my God!" She grabbed the nearest blanket and wrapped it tightly around herself. Her voice exploded through the room. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Adrian immediately turned around. Every muscle in his body locked. This had never happened to him before. Not once in 38 years. And, somehow, the powerful Adrian Whitmore, America's billionaire business genius, had just walked in on a woman changing. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. "I'm sorry," Adrian said quickly, his voice unusually tense. "I thought this room was empty." "Empty?" she snapped. "You didn't think to knock first?" Rain pounded hard against the glass windows. The silence between them became painfully awkward. Adrian had faced billion-dollar negotiations, hostile takeovers, aggressive investors, but, somehow, nothing had prepared him for this. Nothing. Then something unexpected happened. The woman spoke again. Cold, sharp, unafraid. "You can turn around now." Adrian slowly turned, and that was when everything changed. Because the moment he looked at her, something inside him shifted. She stood wrapped in a blanket, glaring at him with fierce brown eyes. Beautiful, strong, confident. But it wasn't her beauty that shook him. It was her presence. There was something powerful about her. Something raw. Something real. Something he hadn't felt in years. And Adrian had no idea that this awkward, embarrassing moment would completely change his life forever. Because sometimes love doesn't begin with romance. Sometimes it begins with chaos. Sometimes it begins with an unexpected collision. And sometimes, the most life-changing people enter our lives when we least expect them. But here's what makes this story unforgettable. This isn't just a story about a billionaire falling in love. No, this is a story about loneliness, healing, emotional walls, fear of vulnerability, and what happens when two broken people are forced to confront the parts of themselves they've spent years trying to hide. So before we begin, tell me in the comments, do you believe true love can appear in the most unexpected moments? And if you love powerful stories about romance, life lessons and emotional healing, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson, and turn on notifications. Now, let's go back to where it all began. 3 hours earlier, Manhattan, 7:15 p.m. Rain clouds hovered heavily over the city, dark and unforgiving, swallowing the golden evening light. Inside the 62nd floor of Whitmore Holdings Tower, Adrian Whitmore sat at the head of a 12-foot conference table, listening as one of his senior executives presented quarterly projections. The room was immaculate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering city skyline. The lighting was soft and expensive. Everything in the room screamed power. And at the center of it all sat Adrian Whitmore, calm, sharp, unreadable. At 38, Adrian had become one of the youngest self-made billionaires in America. His company portfolio stretched across real estate, tech, healthcare, and private equity. Business magazines called him brilliant. Investors called him ruthless. The media called him America's most eligible billionaire. But those who worked closely with him knew one thing. Adrian Whitmore saw everything. He missed nothing. Not the nervous tapping of fingers. Not the hesitation in speech. Not the slight uncertainty in projections. His attention to detail was almost frightening. "Your numbers are off." The executive stopped mid-sentence. The room fell silent. Adrian didn't raise his voice. He never needed to. His authority naturally filled every room. The executive adjusted his glasses nervously. "Sir?" Adrian tapped the document in front of him. Page 32. "Your forecast assumes a 12% increase in market recovery by fourth quarter." The executive swallowed. "Yes." Adrian leaned back slightly. "That projection is optimistic, not realistic." Silence. Adrian's sharp grey eyes scanned the room. Optimism doesn't build empires. His voice remained calm. Accuracy does. No one spoke. No one dared to. After a moment, Adrian closed the file. "Redo it." "Yes, sir." Meeting over, just like that. The executives quickly gathered their things and exited the conference room. Within minutes, Adrian was alone. Silence returned. He stared out at Manhattan. The city glowed beneath gathering rain. Cars moved below like tiny streams of light. From the outside looking in, Adrian Whitmore had everything. Everything. Yet inside, there was nothing but exhaustion. He loosened his tie and shut his eyes briefly. Lately, the emptiness had grown louder. He couldn't explain it. For years, he had buried himself in work. Work was simple, predictable. Numbers made sense. Business made sense. Emotions didn't. Relationships didn't. People complicated everything. His phone buzzed. It was Claire, his assistant. Adrian answered. Yes? Your dinner meeting with the investors has been postponed due to the weather. Adrian exhaled. Reschedule. Yes, sir. A brief pause. Then Claire added carefully, one more thing. Adrian frowned slightly. What? The guest speaker for tomorrow's Whitmore Foundation fundraiser arrived earlier than expected. Adrian tried recalling details. Fundraiser. Right, the mental wellness fundraiser. The foundation had partnered with several organizations to host a large charity event focused on emotional wellness and healing. Claire continued. She'll be staying in the penthouse guest suite. Adrian rubbed his temple. What's her name? Naomi Carter. The name meant nothing to him. Who is she? She's a licensed therapist and speaker, very well respected in her field. Adrian gave a short nod. Fine. Claire hesitated again. She specifically requested privacy. That earned his attention. Privacy? Yes. Adrian's expression remained unreadable. Interesting. Most guests arriving through the foundation were eager to network, socialize, and impress. This one wanted privacy. That alone made her slightly different. Still, he thought little of it. Understood. The call ended. Adrian grabbed his coat. Time to leave. Outside, heavy rain had already started. By the time Adrian's black car reached his penthouse building, the storm had intensified. Rain hit the windows aggressively. Thunder rolled across the city. Adrian stepped out and entered the private lobby. The staff greeted him politely. He gave brief nods. Nothing more. The private elevator carried him upward in silence. When the doors opened, he stepped into his penthouse. Quiet, elegant, cold. A place most people would dream of owning. Yet to Adrian, it never truly felt like home. Just another expensive space. His house manager approached. Good evening, sir. Adrian handed him his coat. Anything urgent? No, sir. Good. Adrian wanted silence. Nothing else. As he walked deeper into the penthouse, his mind drifted. Strangely, he thought about Claire's earlier comment. Naomi Carter. Therapist. Privacy. Why had that stuck with him? Perhaps because privacy was something Adrian understood deeply. Being constantly seen by the world while feeling completely unseen as a person. He knew that feeling too well. He moved toward the hallway leading to the private suites. Meanwhile, inside the guest suite, Naomi Carter stood near the large bedroom window, staring out at the stormy Manhattan skyline. The city looked breathtaking, but Naomi barely noticed. She looked tired, emotionally drained. At 32, Naomi had built a respected career helping people navigate emotional trauma, broken relationships, grief, and healing. She spent her life teaching others how to process pain, how to communicate, how to heal, how to move forward. Ironically, she was still learning how to do that herself. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass. Beautiful, strong, composed. At least, that's what the world saw. What they didn't see were the scars she carried. The heartbreak, the trust issues, the walls. Naomi folded her arms. Coming to Manhattan had not been easy. Speaking at the fundraiser meant visibility. Visibility meant attention. And attention exhausted her. Especially after everything she'd been through. Her best friend Mia had warned her, "You need this." Naomi remembered resisting. "No, I need peace." Mia's answer had been immediate. "No, Naomi, you need healing." Naomi sighed. Maybe Mia was right. Maybe hiding wasn't healing. Maybe keeping walls up wasn't protecting her anymore. Thunder cracked outside. Naomi looked toward her suitcase. A warm shower sounded perfect. She needed to clear her mind before tomorrow. She picked up fresh clothes and walked toward the bathroom, completely unaware that in less than an hour, one accidental encounter would change everything. For both of them. The penthouse was unusually quiet. Only the sound of rain and distant thunder filled the silence. Adrian moved down the hallway toward the guest wing, loosening the top button of his shirt as exhaustion settled deeper into his shoulders. It had been another long day, another day of numbers, decisions, meetings, pressure. Sometimes he wondered if life had become nothing more than an endless cycle of responsibilities. Wake up, work, win, repeat. From the outside, it looked like success. Inside, it felt strangely empty. As he reached the guest wing, Adrian noticed something unusual. One of the suite doors was slightly open. He frowned. Strange. He slowed his steps. Then Claire's words from earlier returned to him. The guest speaker arrived earlier than expected. Right, Naomi Carter. The therapist. Adrian stared at the half-open door for a brief second. For some reason, his tired mind assumed the room was still unoccupied. Without thinking further, he reached for the handle and pushed the door open. And froze. Every muscle in his body locked instantly. Standing in the middle of the room was Naomi. She had just stepped out of the bathroom. Her dark curls were slightly damp. A towel was loosely wrapped around her body as she reached toward the bed where her clothes lay neatly arranged. For one impossible second, time stopped. Neither moved, neither breathed. Then, Naomi turned. Their eyes met. Shock exploded across her face. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God!" She gasped and immediately grabbed the nearest blanket, wrapping it tightly around herself. Her voice came sharp and furious. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Adrian snapped out of his shock and turned away immediately. His jaw tightened. This was bad, very bad. "I'm sorry." His voice was low, controlled, but tense. "I thought the room was empty." "Empty?" Naomi's voice rose with disbelief. "You just walk into rooms without knocking?" Adrian shut his eyes briefly. Fantastic. In 38 years, he had negotiated billion-dollar deals under impossible pressure. Yet somehow, this moment felt infinitely worse. "No," he said calmly. "I don't." "Then why did you do it now?" "Good question." Rain hammered harder against the windows. Adrian exhaled slowly. "I made a mistake." Silence. Heavy. Awkward. Painfully awkward. Naomi tightened the blanket around herself. Her heart pounded hard. Who even does that? She had specifically requested privacy. And now, this arrogant billionaire had walked in on her changing. Unbelievable. She took a steadying breath. At least, he had turned around immediately. That counted for something. Still irritated, she adjusted the blanket securely. "You can turn around now." Adrian turned carefully, and for the first time, he truly looked at her. Naomi stood near the bed, wrapped in the blanket, glaring at him. Her expression was fierce, unimpressed, completely unshaken by his reputation. That alone caught Adrian's attention. Most people reacted differently around him. They became nervous, careful, overly polite. Naomi wasn't any of those things. She looked annoyed, and somehow, strong, very strong. Adrian noticed the sharp intelligence in her eyes, the confidence in the way she held herself, and beneath the anger, something deeper. Pain. Guarded pain. It hit him unexpectedly. She was beautiful. Not in the polished, performative way he was used to seeing. There was something real about her. Raw. Authentic. Unfiltered. It stirred something unfamiliar inside him. Something dangerous. Naomi folded her arms. "Well?" Adrian blinked. "Well, what?" Her expression hardened. Aren't powerful billionaires supposed to say something reassuring after traumatizing innocent women? To his own surprise, the corner of Adrian's mouth almost lifted. She was angry, yet quick-witted, bold, sharp. He hadn't expected that. "I sincerely apologize." Naomi studied him carefully. This was Adrian Whitmore. The Adrian Whitmore, one of the most powerful men in America. She had seen his photos online. He looked exactly as expected. Tall, sharp features, cold grey eyes, expensive suit, controlled posture. Everything about him screamed wealth and discipline. But standing here now, something felt different. He didn't look arrogant. He looked uncomfortable, almost human. Interesting. Adrian broke the silence. "I'm Adrian." Naomi gave him a dry look. "I know exactly who you are." Something in her tone amused him. Not admiration, not flirtation, no nervousness. If anything, she seemed entirely unimpressed. That almost never happened. And strangely, he liked it. A lot. Naomi raised an eyebrow. "Well, Adrian, now that we've established you have terrible timing and questionable manners, what happens next?" That nearly made him smile. He crossed his arms slightly. "What would you suggest?" Naomi stared at him. Was he serious? She exhaled sharply. "I suggest you leave." Adrian nodded once. Fair, reasonable. But, before moving, he heard himself ask something unexpected. "Are you always this blunt?" Naomi narrowed her eyes. "Only when strangers walk in on me changing." Adrian actually smiled this time. A real one. Small, brief, but genuine. Naomi noticed, and something about that caught her off guard. Because for a brief second, he looked different. Not like the intimidating billionaire everyone described. Just like a man. A tired one. A lonely one. The thought came suddenly, unexpectedly, and Naomi didn't like it, because she had spent years learning not to soften too quickly. not to assume depth where charm existed. Still, something about Adrian Whitmore felt strangely complicated, and Adrian felt it too. This woman was different, very different, and for the first time in years, something inside him shifted. Not attraction alone, not lust, something deeper. Curiosity, interest, recognition, as though some quiet sleeping part of him had suddenly awakened. He stepped toward the door, then paused. Again, I'm sorry. Naomi said nothing. Adrian held her gaze for one brief moment. Then he left. The door closed behind him. Silence filled the room. Naomi stood still. Her heart was still racing. What just happened? She exhaled slowly and sat down on the edge of the bed. This trip was already becoming complicated, very complicated. Meanwhile, Adrian stood in the hallway outside, completely still. Rain echoed through the penthouse, but he barely heard it. His mind replayed one thing: her eyes, sharp, fierce, intelligent, unforgettable. Adrian frowned slightly. Strange, very strange. Why couldn't he stop thinking about her already? And why did it feel like something important had just begun? But something tells me this was far more than an embarrassing accident, because sometimes the most unexpected encounters lead to the most unforgettable connections. And Adrian still had no idea that Naomi Carter was about to change his life in ways he never imagined. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think this was just an awkward mistake? Or do you believe fate was already at work? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson, and turn on notifications so you don't miss Chapter 2. Because trust me, things are about to get very interesting. Morning came quietly over Manhattan. The storm had passed. Golden sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, washing everything in warm light. The city below had already come alive. Cars moved through busy streets. People rushed to offices. Another day had begun. But inside the guest suite, Naomi Carter had barely slept. She sat near the window in an oversized cream sweater, holding a mug of coffee in both hands. Her thoughts kept returning to one thing: Adrian Whitmore, the billionaire, the accidental encounter, the sharp look in his grey eyes, the strange tension between them. Naomi sighed and shook her head. Ridiculous. Why was she even thinking about him? It was an awkward moment, nothing more. Still, something about him unsettled her. Not because of his wealth, not because of his status, but because beneath all that calm control, she had seen something unexpected: loneliness. It had flashed across his face for only a second. But Naomi noticed. And she hated that she noticed. Because Naomi Carter noticed everything. It came with being a therapist. At 32, Naomi had built a career helping people understand emotional pain. She helped people identify trauma patterns. She taught them how to communicate, how to heal, how to rebuild, how to trust again. The irony? She was still struggling with some of those things herself. Naomi lowered her gaze to the coffee in her hands. Healing others had always been easier than healing herself. Her phone buzzed. It was Mia. Naomi smiled slightly before answering. "Good morning." Mia's energetic voice filled the line immediately. "Morning, girl, it's almost noon." Naomi laughed softly. "Barely." "So," Mia said with obvious curiosity, "how's Manhattan?" Naomi leaned back in her chair. "Busy, loud, expensive." Mia laughed. "That sounds about right." Then her voice shifted. "So, how are you?" Naomi knew what that meant. Mia wasn't asking about Manhattan. She was asking about Naomi. Naomi hesitated. "I'm okay." Mia sighed dramatically. "That answer is never convincing." Naomi smiled faintly. Mia had known her too long. "You worry too much." "Yes, because someone has to." Naomi looked outside. People below moved through life like clockwork. Everything looked normal, predictable. Meanwhile, her own emotions felt annoyingly unsettled. Mia spoke again. "Are you nervous about tonight?" Naomi thought for a moment. "A little." "You'll do great." Naomi nodded. "I know." Mia paused. Then she asked casually, "How's billionaire mansion life?" Naomi nearly choked on her coffee. Her eyes widened. "How did you know?" Mia gasped dramatically. "Wait, something happened?" Naomi closed her eyes. Great. She should have known Mia would immediately pick up on that. "Naomi." Mia's voice sharpened with excitement. "What happened?" Naomi rubbed her forehead. "It was nothing." "Naomi," she sighed. "He accidentally walked in on me changing." Silence. Then, Mia screamed. "So basically, you're telling me Adrian Whitmore saw you half naked?" Naomi groaned. "Please stop." "Oh my God. Mia, this is unbelievable." Naomi pinched the bridge of her nose. It was humiliating. Mia laughed loudly. Humiliating for who? Because I promise you, Adrian Whitmore is probably still recovering. Naomi rolled her eyes. You're impossible. Mia's voice turned teasing. So, was he hot in person? Naomi frowned. Mia, that's not a no. Naomi hated how quickly her mind answered. Yes, very, annoyingly so. Tall, sharp jawline, controlled presence, grey eyes that saw too much, and a smile she hadn't expected. She pushed the thoughts away immediately. Dangerous territory. Very dangerous. Mia caught the silence. Oh, Naomi groaned. Stop. Mia laughed again. You're in trouble. No, I'm not. You noticed him. Naomi's voice turned firm. I noticed that he invaded my privacy. Mia snorted. Sure. Naomi smiled despite herself. Mia softened. Just be careful. That changed the mood instantly. Naomi's smile faded, because they both understood what those words really meant. Be careful. Don't trust too fast. Don't ignore red flags. Don't let charm fool you. Naomi swallowed. Her past still lingered like a scar that hadn't fully faded. Trust had once cost her deeply, and she had spent years rebuilding herself. Mia spoke gently. I know you. Naomi stayed quiet. Mia continued. You're strong. But sometimes you act like strength means never needing anyone. Naomi looked down. That hit close. Too close. Mia's voice softened further. Healing doesn't mean closing yourself off forever. Naomi swallowed hard. I know. Do you? Silence. Naomi didn't answer. Because the truth was, she wasn't sure. After everything she'd been through, emotional safety had become her highest priority. And walls felt safer than vulnerability. But were they really protecting her? Or isolating her? That question stayed with her long after the call ended. Naomi sat quietly, lost in thought. Then a soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Her body tensed. A voice came from outside. Calm, deep, controlled. Naomi? Adrian. Her pulse quickened unexpectedly. She stood slowly. Why was he here? Naomi stood frozen for a brief moment. Her pulse quickened. Adrian. Why was he here? She glanced at herself quickly. At least, she looked presentable. Taking a steady breath, she walked toward the door and opened it. Adrian stood there, calm as ever, perfectly dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark tailored trousers. His expression was unreadable, but his grey eyes held a quiet seriousness. For a second, neither spoke. Then Adrian lifted a small tray slightly. Coffee and breakfast. Naomi blinked. That surprised her. I come in peace, he said. His voice was calm, almost dry. Naomi stared at him, then at the tray, then back at him. One eyebrow lifted. This is your way of apologizing? A faint smile touched Adrian's lips. Yes. Naomi studied him carefully. He looked sincere. No arrogance, no smugness. Just quiet intention. Interesting. She stepped aside. Fine. Adrian entered. The scent of coffee filled the room. He placed the tray gently on the small dining table near the window. Silence settled between them. Awkward. Not uncomfortable. Just unfamiliar. Naomi crossed her arms. You didn't have to do this. Adrian looked at her. Yes, I did. His answer was immediate. Simple. Honest. That caught her off guard. Adrian gestured toward the tray. I figured breakfast might improve your opinion of me. Naomi almost smiled. Almost. That depends. On what? She held his gaze. Whether this coffee is good. For the first time, Adrian's smile came easier. Small. Genuine. Unexpectedly warm. I'm confident. Naomi sat down slowly and reached for the cup. She took a sip, then paused. Okay, that was good. Very good. She hated that. Adrian noticed. Well? Naomi looked at him. It's acceptable. Adrian's mouth curved slightly. Acceptable. That's the highest praise you're getting. Something about this exchange felt strangely natural. Adrian sat across from her. He studied her quietly. Naomi noticed. What? Adrian spoke carefully. You're different from what I expected. Naomi frowned slightly. And what exactly were you expecting? Adrian leaned back. A therapist who speaks at charity events. Naomi narrowed her eyes. That tells me nothing. Adrian's expression remained calm. I expected someone softer. Naomi held his gaze. And instead? Adrian answered without hesitation. Someone sharper. Silence. Naomi studied him. That wasn't an insult. It sounded more like observation. Interesting. She leaned back. You say that like it's surprising. Adrian folded his hands. It is. Naomi exhaled softly, then asked, what about me surprised you? Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he answered, you don't seem impressed by wealth. Naomi almost laughed. Should I be? Most people would have been careful saying that to Adrian Whitmore. Naomi wasn't. Adrian found that strangely refreshing. No. His answer was quiet. You shouldn't. Naomi noticed something shift in his expression. Something subtle. Something tired. Her instincts sharpened. There it was again. That quiet heaviness behind his eyes. The loneliness. She noticed it instantly. Adrian spoke again. What about me? Naomi blinked. What about you? What did you expect? Naomi studied him carefully. This felt dangerous, because honesty came naturally to her. But honesty also made people uncomfortable. Still, she answered, I expected someone colder. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did. Colder? Naomi nodded. You have a reputation. Adrian's voice stayed calm. And? Naomi met his gaze. People describe you as intimidating, ruthless, emotionally unavailable. Silence. Neither looked away. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. Naomi immediately noticed. She had hit something real. Interesting. Very interesting. Adrian looked out the window briefly. Then he spoke. People talk too much. Naomi almost smiled. That's not exactly a denial. Adrian looked back at her. No. His voice lowered. It isn't. The air shifted. The conversation had suddenly moved deeper, faster. Naomi noticed it. So did Adrian. He was unusually aware of her. The way she listened. The way she observed everything. The way her eyes seemed to look beyond words. It unsettled him. Because almost no one looked at him like that. As if trying to understand the man beneath the reputation. Naomi broke the silence. Can I ask you something? Adrian nodded once. Yes. She held his gaze. Are you happy? The question landed like a shockwave. Adrian went still. Completely still. No one asked him that. Ever. People asked about deals, profits, investments, success. No one asked that. Happy? The word felt strange. Almost foreign. Naomi watched him carefully. His silence told her more than words already had. Adrian gave a short, humorless laugh. That's a dangerous question. Naomi remained calm. Why? Adrian stared at her. Because she had done something rare. She had cut straight past the image, straight past the power, straight to him. And he wasn't prepared for that. Not at all. After a long silence, Adrian finally answered. His voice was quieter now, more honest. Because I don't know. The room fell silent. Adrian's words lingered heavily in the air. Because I don't know. Naomi held his gaze, but she said nothing. She had learned long ago that silence was powerful. Sometimes people revealed more in silence than in speech. And right now, Adrian Whitmore looked like a man standing at the edge of something unfamiliar. Vulnerability. He leaned back in his chair and stared briefly out the window. The Manhattan skyline stretched endlessly before them. Beautiful, busy, alive, yet somehow distant. Adrian exhaled slowly. You're very direct. Naomi's lips curved slightly. I've been told that before. Adrian glanced at her. That question... He paused. No one asks me things like that. Naomi tilted her head slightly. What do people ask you? Adrian gave a faint, humorless smile. The usual. His voice was calm, but there was something heavy underneath. Business growth, market forecasts, investment strategies. He shrugged slightly. Sometimes relationships. Naomi raised an eyebrow. Relationships? Adrian's expression barely changed. Mostly people trying to figure out if I'm dating anyone. Naomi almost smiled. That sounds exhausting. Adrian's laugh was quiet. It is. Silence settled again. But this silence felt different. Softer, more open. Naomi studied him carefully. His face remained composed, but his eyes carried something deeper. Exhaustion. Not physical. Emotional. She had seen that look many times before. People carrying invisible weight. People functioning well on the outside while quietly drowning inside. Adrian spoke again. You asked if I'm happy. Naomi remained still. Adrian's gaze drifted toward the city. The muscles in his jaw tightened briefly, then relaxed. Finally he spoke. I don't know when life became so mechanical. His voice had changed. Lower, more honest. No performance, no billionaire mask. Just Adrian. He folded his hands loosely. Every day feels the same. He spoke slowly, as though hearing his own truth for the first time. I wake up, I work, I solve problems. I make decisions. I build. I expand. His grey eyes remained fixed on the skyline. Then I sleep. He paused. And repeat. Naomi listened quietly. Adrian continued. People look at my life and assume success means fulfillment. A bitter smile touched his face. They think money solves everything. He gave a small shake of his head. It doesn't. Silence. Naomi felt something tighten in her chest, because there was no arrogance in his voice. Only honesty. Raw honesty. Adrian's voice dropped slightly. Success gives you options. He paused. Comfort, access, freedom. Then he looked directly at Naomi. But it doesn't guarantee peace. The words hit deeply. Naomi felt the weight behind them. This wasn't rehearsed. This wasn't polished. This was truth. Adrian leaned back. His expression hardened slightly, not from anger, but self-protection. Most people don't want the truth. Naomi's gaze stayed steady. What truth? Adrian's jaw tightened. He answered quietly. That sometimes, the loneliest people are the ones surrounded by everyone. The room became very still. Naomi felt those words settle deep inside her. Because she understood, deeply. Adrian continued, his voice quieter now. People are always around me. He gave a small shrug. Employees, investors, colleagues, women. His expression remained unreadable, but very few people actually see me. Silence. Heavy. Honest. Naomi didn't rush to fill it. She simply let him speak. Adrian looked down at his hands. For the first time since meeting him, Naomi saw something striking. Not power. Not confidence. Weariness. The kind that comes from carrying too much alone. Adrian spoke again. You know what's strange? Naomi waited. He looked up. I can walk into a room with hundreds of people and still feel completely alone. The words were simple, but devastating. Naomi's heart softened, because beneath all the wealth and success sat a man carrying profound loneliness. A lonely man in a penthouse. A lonely man admired by millions. A lonely man no one truly knew. And suddenly, Naomi understood something. Adrian Whitmore wasn't cold. He was guarded. There was a difference. A big one. She leaned forward slightly. Can I tell you what I think? Adrian held her gaze. Yes. Naomi's voice softened. I don't think you're emotionally unavailable. Adrian's brows narrowed slightly. No one had ever challenged that label before. Naomi continued. I think you're emotionally exhausted. That landed instantly. Hard. Adrian went still. His grey eyes locked onto hers. The silence stretched. Because Naomi had done it again. She had said something no one else ever had. And somehow, she was right. Adrian said nothing. He simply stared at Naomi. Still, silent, completely unreadable. But Naomi noticed it, the subtle tension in his jaw, the shift in his breathing, the way his eyes hardened slightly, not from anger, but from discomfort. She had touched something real, very real. Finally, Adrian leaned back slowly. His voice came low and controlled. Emotionally exhausted. He repeated the words like he was testing them. Naomi nodded. Yes. Adrian held her gaze. And what exactly makes you think that? Naomi didn't hesitate. Because emotionally unavailable people don't feel much. She paused. You feel too much. That landed instantly. Adrian's expression remained calm. But internally, something shifted. Naomi continued. They shut down because they don't care. Her voice softened. You shut down because carrying everything has become overwhelming. Silence. Heavy silence. Adrian couldn't remember the last time someone had read him this accurately. Maybe never. Naomi leaned back slightly. Still calm. Still composed. Still looking directly at him. I think you've spent so long being the strong one. She paused. That you've forgotten what it feels like to put your guard down. Adrian's jaw tightened again, because every word hit with brutal precision. Naomi wasn't guessing. She understood him. And that unsettled him deeply. His voice lowered. You make a lot of observations. Naomi's lips curved faintly. It's literally my job. That almost made Adrian smile. Almost. He folded his arms. And what else have you observed? The question surprised even him. Why had he asked that? Naomi noticed too. Interesting. Very interesting. This man was opening doors he usually kept locked. She studied him carefully. Should she answer honestly? Her instincts told her yes. So she did. I think you use control as protection. Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly. Naomi continued. You control your environment. She gestured slightly. Your business, your schedule, your decisions, your image. Her voice remained calm. Because control feels safe. Adrian remained silent. Naomi held his gaze. But emotions don't work that way. Silence. Her voice softened further. You can't control vulnerability. That word again. Vulnerability. Adrian hated how deeply it unsettled him. Because she was right. Control had always been his survival strategy. Control meant strength. Control meant safety. Control meant no surprises, no disappointments, no emotional chaos. Naomi spoke again. And I think that terrifies you. That did it. Adrian looked away briefly, toward the city, toward anything except her eyes. Because he suddenly felt exposed, completely exposed. And he wasn't used to that, not even a little. After a long silence, Adrian finally spoke. His voice was quieter now, more honest. Vulnerability feels expensive. Naomi studied him. Then, to his surprise, she shook her head. No. Adrian looked back at her. Naomi's expression softened. It feels dangerous. The words hit him harder than expected. Dangerous. Yes, that was the word. Not expensive. Dangerous. Adrian stared at her. For the first time in a very long time. He felt understood. Truly understood. Not admired. Not judged. Understood. And that feeling was almost overwhelming. Naomi noticed the shift in his eyes. The walls hadn't disappeared. But something had cracked. Something important. Adrian exhaled slowly. You're good at this. Naomi raised an eyebrow. At annoying billionaires? That made him laugh. A real laugh. Short, unexpected, but genuine. The sound surprised both of them. Naomi blinked. There it was again. That different version of Adrian. Lighter, softer, human. For a brief moment, he looked younger, less burdened. Adrian noticed her watching him. What? Naomi's lips curved. That's the second time. He frowned slightly. The second time, what? I made you smile. Adrian stared at her. Then slowly, very slowly, the corner of his mouth lifted again. Naomi felt her heartbeat shift. Dangerous. This was dangerous. Because something had changed. The conversation no longer felt like two strangers talking. It felt deeper, more intimate, more personal. Adrian noticed it too. And strangely, he didn't want it to end. That realization caught him off guard. Completely. He almost never enjoyed conversations this much. Yet, with Naomi, everything felt different, natural, effortless, real. After a brief silence, Adrian asked quietly, What about you? Naomi frowned slightly. What about me? Adrian held her gaze. You analyze everyone else. His voice softened. Who analyzes you? That question hit Naomi unexpectedly. Her expression changed instantly. The warmth faded slightly. Adrian noticed. Interesting. Very interesting. He had touched something now. A wound. A guarded place. Naomi looked away for the first time. Toward the window. Toward the city. Silence stretched between them. Then, Adrian realized something. Naomi Carter had walls too. Big ones. And behind her calm confidence, there was pain. Real pain. Suddenly, Adrian understood. This wasn't just a therapist talking to a billionaire. This was two guarded people recognizing something familiar in each other. Pain. Loneliness. Emotional exhaustion. Naomi finally spoke. Her voice was quiet now. Careful. Not everything needs analysis. Adrian watched her closely. That sounds like avoidance. Naomi looked back at him. Their eyes locked again. This time, the silence felt heavier, more personal, more dangerous. Then Adrian said something simple. Quiet. Honest. Maybe. A strange tension filled the room. Not uncomfortable. Just intense. Charged. For one brief moment, neither looked away. Neither spoke. And something shifted. Subtle, but undeniable. The air between them had changed. This was no longer just curiosity. Something deeper had begun. Neither wanted to admit it. But both felt it, clearly. And that was the most dangerous part of all. The silence between Adrian and Naomi lingered. Heavy, charged. Neither of them moved. Neither seemed eager to break whatever had formed in that moment. Then Naomi stood. Abruptly, too abruptly. The movement broke the tension instantly. She folded her arms and walked toward the large window overlooking Manhattan. Her heart was beating faster than she wanted to admit. Dangerous. This was dangerous. Adrian Whitmore was getting too close. Not physically, emotionally, and that unsettled her. A lot. She stared down at the busy city below, trying to steady her thoughts. Cars moved like tiny streams of light. People rushed along sidewalks. Life continued. Normal. predictable. Meanwhile, something inside her felt anything but stable. Adrian remained seated, watching her quietly. He noticed everything. The sudden shift, the tension in her shoulders, the guarded energy. She was retreating. Emotionally. Interesting. Very interesting. He stood slowly. Naomi. His voice was calm, gentle. Naomi closed her eyes briefly. She hated that his voice affected her. She turned to face him. Her expression was composed again. Controlled. The walls were back up. Adrian noticed immediately. The softness in her eyes had vanished, replaced by caution. That confirmed it. Naomi Carter was carrying wounds. Deep ones. Adrian spoke carefully. You don't like talking about yourself. Naomi gave a small shrug. Maybe I prefer listening. Adrian held her gaze. That's not an answer. Naomi almost smiled. You're observant. So are you. Silence. Adrian took another step closer. Not too close. Just enough to matter. Naomi's pulse quickened. He noticed, but said nothing. Instead, he asked quietly, who hurt you? The question hit like a shockwave. Naomi's expression froze. Completely. Adrian saw it instantly. He had struck something real. Very real. Naomi let out a soft breath, then laughed. A short, humorless laugh. That's a bold question. Adrian's expression remained steady. You ask bold questions too. Naomi stared at him. Part of her wanted to deflect, to shut this down, to move away, to change the subject. But something about Adrian's eyes stopped her. He wasn't asking out of curiosity. He was asking because he genuinely wanted to understand. That made this harder, much harder. Naomi looked away, toward the city again. Silence stretched. Then finally, she spoke, quietly, carefully. I was engaged. Adrian remained still, listening. Naomi folded her arms tighter. Her voice stayed calm. Too calm. The kind of calm people use when discussing pain they've buried deeply. For 3 years. She swallowed. We built a life together. Her eyes remained fixed on the skyline. We had plans. A faint, bitter smile touched her lips. A future. Adrian said nothing. Naomi continued. I trusted him. The words came softer now, more vulnerable. I trusted him completely. Silence. Heavy silence. Adrian could hear the pain beneath every word. Naomi exhaled slowly. Then came the truth. I found out he'd been cheating. The room felt colder. Adrian's jaw tightened. Naomi continued. Still calm. Still composed. But her voice had changed. Raw. He wasn't unfaithful once. She paused. It had been happening for months. Adrian felt something twist inside him. Naomi's eyes glistened slightly, though she fought to keep control. When I confronted him... Her laugh returned, broken this time. He cried. She shook her head. He apologized. Another pause. He begged. Silence. Naomi swallowed hard. Then came the line that broke something inside Adrian. He said he loved me. She looked down. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. And somehow, that hurt more. Adrian stared at her. He understood exactly what she meant. Because betrayal from someone who claims to love you cuts differently. Deeper. Naomi's composure cracked slightly. Just slightly. He made me question everything. Her voice trembled. Everything. She finally looked at Adrian. Pain sat openly in her eyes now. Raw. Unfiltered. For the first time since meeting her, Adrian saw Naomi without armor. And it hit him harder than expected. Naomi's voice softened. I started questioning my judgment. Her eyes shimmered. My worth. She swallowed. My ability to trust. Silence. The room felt painfully still. Naomi looked away again. Her voice dropped further. People think betrayal only breaks your heart. She shook her head slowly. No. A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it quickly. It breaks your sense of safety. Those words hit Adrian deeply, because they were devastatingly true. Naomi took a slow breath, then spoke the deepest truth of all. After that, she paused. A painful silence followed. Then, I stopped believing love was safe. The words landed heavily between them. Adrian felt them. Every word, every wound. And suddenly, he understood her walls. He understood the caution, the sharpness, the emotional distance. Naomi wasn't guarded because she was cold. She was guarded because she had been broken. And somewhere deep inside, she was still afraid. The room fell silent. Naomi's words lingered heavily between them. I stopped believing love was safe. Adrian stood still, watching her, really watching her. The strong, sharp, composed woman he had met yesterday now looked different. Not weaker, just more human, more real. For the first time since meeting Naomi Carter, Adrian saw the depth of pain she carried. And suddenly, everything made sense. The walls, the caution, the emotional distance, the sharp tongue. She wasn't difficult. She was protecting herself. Protecting the broken places no one else could see. Naomi quickly wiped her face. Embarrassment crept in almost immediately. She hated crying in front of people, especially in front of Adrian. She hated feeling exposed, vulnerable, weak. She folded her arms again, instinctively rebuilding her walls. This is why I avoid talking about myself. Her voice was steady again, mostly. Adrian said nothing for a moment. Then he spoke. Quietly. You're not weak. Naomi blinked. Her eyes lifted to him. Adrian held her gaze. His voice remained calm, low, certain. You know that, right? Naomi stared at him. He continued. What happened to you was painful. A pause. But surviving it didn't make you weak. His expression softened. It made you human. The words hit her unexpectedly, because something about the way he said them felt real. Not rehearsed. Not performative. Real. Naomi looked away. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Sometimes I don't feel strong. Adrian responded immediately. That's because strength is exhausting. Naomi looked back at him. Surprised. Adrian's eyes remained steady. He understood that feeling too well. He continued quietly. People admire strong people. A faint, bitter smile touched his lips. They depend on them. His voice dropped slightly. But very few people ask strong people if they're tired. Silence. Naomi felt those words deeply, because she lived that truth every day. Everyone came to her for strength, for wisdom, for emotional support. But who supported her? Who asked if she was okay? Very few. Adrian took another small step closer, still giving her space, still careful. But strength doesn't mean never breaking. He paused. It means finding a way to keep going honestly. Naomi stared at him. Something inside her shifted. This was not the Adrian Whitmore she expected. Not at all. Where was the cold billionaire? The ruthless businessman? Instead, standing before her was a man who understood pain. A man who understood emotional exhaustion. A man who somehow kept saying exactly what she needed to hear. And that terrified her. Because people like Adrian were dangerous. Not because they were cruel. Because they could get past her defenses. Naomi exhaled slowly. Then, asked softly, how do you do that? Adrian frowned slightly. Do what? She held his gaze. Say things that feel... She paused. Too accurate. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he answered honestly. Because I know what it feels like. Silence. Naomi's heart tightened. There it was again, that quiet sadness in his eyes. She softened, just a little. Adrian spoke again. I understand what it's like to stop trusting. Naomi frowned slightly. Because of relationships? Adrian gave a small humorless smile. Relationships. A pause. People. His expression hardened slightly. Disappointment. Naomi listened carefully. Adrian's voice stayed low. When people repeatedly show you that trust is expensive. He paused. You start relying on yourself for everything. The words hit Naomi deeply, because she understood. Completely. Adrian looked at her. His voice softened. The problem is... He paused again. That survival strategy eventually becomes isolation. Silence. The air between them felt incredibly intimate now. Not romantic. Not yet. Something deeper. Recognition. Two wounded people speaking truth. Naomi studied him quietly. Then she said something honest. You're not what I expected. Adrian raised an eyebrow slightly. That sounds familiar. Naomi almost smiled. Almost. Her voice softened. I thought you'd be emotionally unavailable. Adrian's gaze held hers. And now? Naomi hesitated. This felt dangerous. Very dangerous. But she answered honestly. I think you're lonely. The room became still. Adrian stared at her. No one said that to him. Ever. Naomi continued quietly. I think you've gotten so used to carrying everything alone. Her voice softened further. That you don't know how to let anyone truly in. Silence. Heavy. Intimate. Painfully honest. Adrian looked at her. And for the first time in years, he felt something crack inside him. Not weakness. Not fear. Something else. Relief. Because someone finally saw him. Really saw him. Without the title. Without the money. Without the image. Just him. The real him. And somehow, that felt terrifying and beautiful. At the same time, the silence stretched between them. Neither moved. Neither looked away. The city buzzed far below. But inside the penthouse, everything felt suspended. Then Adrian spoke. Quietly. Raw. Honest. You scare me. Naomi blinked. What? Adrian held her gaze. His voice remained calm, but his eyes were intense. You see too much. Naomi's heartbeat quickened. Adrian took one final small step closer. Now close enough to feel dangerous. Close enough for the tension to become impossible to ignore. His voice dropped lower. And the dangerous part. He paused, his eyes locked onto hers. Is that I don't want you to stop. Naomi's heart pounded. Hard. Fast. Adrian's words echoed in her mind. And the dangerous part is that I don't want you to stop. The air between them felt charged. Heavy. Almost electric. Neither moved. Neither spoke. For one dangerous moment, it felt like everything around them had disappeared. No city, no penthouse, no noise. Just the two of them, standing there, locked in a silence that somehow said too much. Naomi could feel her pulse racing. This was dangerous. Very dangerous. Because Adrian Whitmore was getting closer to places inside her she had spent years protecting. And the terrifying part, she wasn't sure she wanted to stop him. Adrian studied her carefully. He noticed everything. The slight shift in her breathing. The way her fingers tightened slightly against her arms. The guarded hesitation in her eyes. And beneath all that, something softer. Something vulnerable. Something real. He should step back. He knew that. He should create distance. He should regain control. But for the first time in years, Adrian didn't want control. He wanted honesty. And right now, honesty felt terrifying. Naomi finally found her voice. Soft. Unsteady. You're making this complicated. Adrian's expression softened slightly. Am the first? Naomi gave a small, nervous laugh. Yes. Adrian studied her. His voice lowered. I think this became complicated the moment I opened that door. Despite herself, Naomi laughed softly. That broke the tension. Just enough. She shook her head. That was still the most ridiculous first meeting I've ever had. A faint smile touched Adrian's lips. I agree. Silence returned, but now it felt softer, warmer, less sharp. Naomi finally stepped back. Just enough to breathe easier. Adrian noticed, but didn't push. He respected that. Naomi looked away briefly, trying to steady herself. What was happening? This wasn't supposed to happen. Not with him. Not here. Not now. She had come to Manhattan for work. One charity event, one speech. That was all. She definitely had not planned to form this kind of connection with Adrian Whitmore. Adrian broke the silence. You're speaking tonight. Naomi looked back at him. Yes. What's your topic? Naomi exhaled. Healing after emotional trauma. Adrian's expression shifted slightly. Interesting. Very interesting. He held her gaze. That sounds personal. Naomi almost smiled. It usually is. Adrian nodded slowly. That made sense. The best teachers often spoke from lived experience. He looked at her carefully. I'd like to hear you speak. Naomi blinked. That surprised her. You're attending? Adrian gave a dry smile. It's my foundation's event. Naomi almost smiled. Right. A quiet pause followed. Then Adrian asked something unexpected. Do you believe everyone heals? Naomi frowned slightly. The question caught her off guard. She thought carefully before answering. No. Adrian's brows narrowed slightly. No? Naomi shook her head gently. Not everyone heals. Silence. Adrian studied her. Naomi continued. Because healing requires honesty. Her voice softened. It requires facing things people spend years avoiding. Adrian said nothing. Naomi held his gaze. Pain doesn't disappear just because we ignore it. The words landed heavily. She continued. It waits. A pause. Quietly. Her eyes remained locked on his, until it starts showing up in everything. Silence filled the room. Adrian felt every word. Because deep down, he knew she wasn't just speaking generally. She was speaking to him, too. Naomi continued softly. In relationships. A pause. In fear. Another pause. In emotional distance. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. Again, she saw too much. Naomi's expression softened. Healing begins when people stop running. The room fell silent. Adrian stared at her. There it was again. That unsettling feeling. Naomi had this strange ability to say simple things that hit with devastating precision. After a long pause, Adrian spoke quietly. And what if someone doesn't know where to begin? Naomi's gaze softened. This question felt personal. Very personal. She answered gently. By telling the truth. Adrian frowned slightly. The truth about what? Naomi's voice dropped. What hurts? Silence. Heavy. Meaningful. The two of them stood there, surrounded by a quiet honesty that felt both comforting and dangerous. Adrian exhaled slowly. He had spent years avoiding uncomfortable truths, avoiding emotional honesty, avoiding vulnerability. Yet somehow, talking to Naomi made avoidance feel impossible. And strangely, he didn't hate that. He looked at her, really looked at her, and a realization hit him with surprising force. He wanted more of this, more conversations, more honesty, more time, more of her. The realization unsettled him, because it came too fast, too intensely. And Adrian Whitmore was not a man who lost control easily. Yet around Naomi, control felt increasingly fragile. Naomi noticed his silence. What are you thinking? Adrian held her gaze. He answered honestly. That meeting you cancelled yesterday. Naomi frowned. What about it? Adrian's voice remained calm. For the first time in years. He paused. His grey eyes stayed locked on hers. I'm glad something didn't go according to plan. Naomi's heartbeat shifted, because she understood exactly what he meant, and so did he. The silence that followed felt deeply intimate. Neither smiled, neither looked away, but both understood. Something undeniable had begun, quietly, unexpectedly, without warning, and neither of them knew what to do with it. The rest of the day passed in a strange blur for Adrian. Meetings happened, calls came in, documents were reviewed, decisions were made, but none of it held his attention, not fully, because his mind kept returning to one person. Naomi, her voice, her eyes, the way she spoke with quiet confidence, the way she saw through him with unsettling ease, and, worst of all, the way he actually liked it. Adrian sat in his office later that afternoon, staring at a financial report without truly seeing it. His phone buzzed. Claire. He answered immediately. Yes? Sir, preparations for tonight's fundraiser are complete. Adrian rubbed his jaw. Good. Claire hesitated, then asked carefully, Is everything all right? Adrian frowned. Yes. A pause. Then Claire said something surprising. You seem distracted. Adrian stared at the skyline outside his office. Distracted. That was one word for it. He ended the call shortly after, and leaned back in his chair. Distracted wasn't even close. He felt unsettled, and Adrian Whitmore hated feeling unsettled. He liked control, precision, structure. This felt unpredictable, and unpredictability made him uncomfortable, because unpredictability usually came with risk. And yet, the thought of seeing Naomi again tonight stirred something dangerously close to anticipation. That realization hit him hard. He was looking forward to seeing her. More than he should, much more. By evening, the Whitmore Foundation ballroom was glowing with elegance. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Soft music played in the background. Guests filled the luxurious venue dressed in expensive gowns and tailored suits. Executives, investors, public figures, philanthropists, everyone important had arrived. Adrian stood near the front, speaking with a board member, but his attention kept drifting toward the entrance. He checked his watch. Subtle, controlled, but restless. Then, he saw her, and everything around him faded. Naomi entered the ballroom with calm confidence. Adrian went completely still. She wore a stunning deep emerald gown that flowed elegantly around her. Simple, sophisticated, effortless. Her curls framed her face beautifully. But it wasn't the dress that stole Adrian's breath. It was her presence. She carried herself with quiet strength, grace, confidence, authenticity. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, and somehow, that made her unforgettable. Adrian couldn't look away. Claire noticed immediately. Interesting, very interesting. A small smile touched her lips before she excused herself discreetly. Meanwhile, Naomi spotted Adrian across the room, and immediately felt her pulse quicken. Dangerous, very dangerous. He looked exactly as he always did. Sharp black suit, controlled expression, powerful presence. But tonight, something felt different, because now she knew what lived behind that composed exterior. Loneliness, depth, pain, and somehow knowing that made him harder to ignore. Their eyes locked across the room. The noise around them faded. For one brief moment, it felt like only they existed. Then Adrian moved. He crossed the room toward her. Steady, intentional. Naomi's heartbeat quickened with every step. He stopped in front of her, close enough for tension to return instantly. Adrian's eyes moved over her briefly, then back to her face. His voice came lower than usual. "You look beautiful." Simple words, but spoken with complete sincerity. Naomi felt warmth rise unexpectedly. She held his gaze. "Thank you." A faint smile touched her lips. "You clean up well too." That made Adrian smile slightly. Then he surprised her. Again, his voice softened. "No." Naomi frowned slightly. "No?" Adrian's gaze remained fixed on hers. "You're distracting." Naomi blinked. Her pulse jumped. Did he really just say that? Adrian looked calm. But internally, he was anything but calm. Because that was the truth. She was distracting. Dangerously so. Naomi exhaled softly. A small, nervous laugh escaped her. "You're being unusually honest tonight." Adrian's expression softened. "Maybe that's your fault." Silence. Charged silence. Then, the event host approached. "Miss Carter, you're on in 2 minutes." Naomi nodded. The nerves returned immediately. Adrian noticed the slight tension, the subtle inhale. He lowered his voice. "You'll do well." Naomi looked at him. Something about his calm certainty steadied her. She gave a small nod, then asked quietly, "How do you know?" Adrian held her gaze. "Because I trust you." The words landed heavily. Naomi stared at him. Her heart skipped. Trust. Such a simple word. Yet between them, it carried immense weight. Before she could respond, the host called her again. "Time." Naomi exhaled slowly. Then she turned toward the stage. Adrian watched her walk away. And something inside him shifted powerfully. He felt it clearly now. This wasn't attraction. It wasn't fascination. It wasn't temporary curiosity. No, it was deeper, much deeper. As Naomi stepped onto the stage, the room quieted. She stood at the podium, graceful, composed, powerful. Then she began speaking. Her voice filled the ballroom. Warm, strong, authentic, and Adrian found himself completely captivated. She spoke about emotional wounds, about pain, about betrayal, about healing, about courage, about the hard truth that healing begins when people stop lying to themselves. Every word hit him, deeply, because somehow it felt like she was speaking directly to him. Then Naomi said something that shook him. "Many people think healing means becoming fearless." Her voice was calm, steady, but real healing isn't the absence of fear. Silence filled the ballroom. Naomi's eyes scanned the audience. Then briefly, they landed on Adrian. Her voice softened. "Real healing is choosing honesty despite fear." Adrian felt his chest tighten. Naomi continued. "Real healing is allowing yourself to be seen." A pause. "To love." Another pause. "To trust." Then came the line that changed everything. Her voice dropped. Soft, powerful. "Because the greatest tragedy isn't heartbreak. Silence. It's closing your heart so completely that love can no longer reach you." The room became still, completely still, and Adrian felt something hit him with devastating clarity. A truth so undeniable he could no longer ignore it. He was falling. Hard. Completely. Irrevocably. Adrian Whitmore had fallen in love. And for the first time in years, that terrified him. And just like that, the man who had spent years controlling everything in his life was now facing the one thing he could not control. Love. Adrian Whitmore had built empires, conquered industries, and mastered power. But love was different. Because love doesn't care about money. It doesn't care about status. And it certainly doesn't ask for permission before changing everything. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Adrian should tell Naomi how he feels? Or is it too soon? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this emotional journey, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson, and turn on notifications. Because in Chapter 6, love will stop feeling exciting and start feeling terrifying. Things are about to get intense. The ballroom slowly emptied as the fundraiser came to an end. Guests mingled, conversations flowed, compliments surrounded Naomi from every direction. Her speech had moved people deeply. Several attendees thanked her personally. Others praised her honesty and emotional insight. Naomi smiled politely, accepted compliments gracefully, but part of her attention remained elsewhere, on Adrian. Even when she wasn't looking directly at him, she felt his presence. And somehow, that awareness unsettled her. Because it felt too natural, too intense, too fast, dangerous, very dangerous. Across the room, Adrian stood speaking with board members. Outwardly calm, composed, collected. No one around him would guess what was happening inside him. Chaos. Complete chaos. His thoughts kept replaying one truth. He was in love with Naomi. Even thinking the words felt surreal. Impossible. Adrian Whitmore didn't fall fast. He didn't lose control. He certainly didn't fall in love with someone he had only just met. And yet, here he was, completely shaken by one woman. Claire approached quietly. Her expression unreadable. But there was a subtle knowing look in her eyes. Interesting. Very interesting. She stopped beside him. Successful event. Adrian gave a short nod. Yes. Claire studied him briefly, then spoke casually. She's impressive. Adrian's eyes shifted toward Naomi almost instantly. Claire noticed. Of course she noticed. Adrian said nothing. Claire almost smiled. She's different. That finally made Adrian glance at her. Claire's expression remained neutral, but her eyes were sharp, observant. She challenges you. Adrian frowned slightly. That obvious? Claire's lips curved faintly. To me, yes. Adrian exhaled slowly. Claire had worked with him long enough to read him better than most people. She lowered her voice slightly. I haven't seen you this affected in years. Silence. Adrian didn't deny it, because denial felt pointless. Claire's voice softened. Be careful. Adrian frowned. Interesting. That was exactly what Mia had told Naomi earlier. Be careful. Adrian looked at Claire. Why? Claire answered honestly. Because people who challenge your emotional patterns can change everything. Those words stayed with him, long after Claire walked away. An hour later, the event finally ended. The ballroom had nearly emptied. Naomi stepped outside onto the quiet terrace overlooking the glowing Manhattan skyline. Cool night air brushed against her skin. She exhaled slowly. She needed space. To breathe. To think. Too much had happened in too little time. Meeting Adrian. The strange emotional connection. The conversations. The tension. The growing attraction. It all felt overwhelming. Naomi gripped the terrace railing lightly. Her mind felt restless. Why was Adrian affecting her this much? She barely knew him. Yet somehow, he felt dangerously familiar. Not because of his status. Because of his emotional depth. His loneliness. His guarded nature. She understood him in ways that felt unsettling. And worse, he understood her too. That scared her. Because being understood created intimacy. And intimacy created vulnerability. Naomi closed her eyes briefly. She had worked too hard rebuilding herself. Too hard healing. Too hard learning emotional boundaries. She couldn't afford to lose herself again. A voice behind her interrupted her thoughts. You disappeared. Her pulse shifted instantly. Adrian. She turned slowly. He stood near the terrace doors. No jacket now. Just his dress shirt, sleeves rolled slightly. Less polished. More human. More dangerous. Naomi exhaled softly. I needed air. Adrian stepped closer. The city lights reflected in his grey eyes. Neither spoke for a moment. The silence between them felt strangely intimate. Finally, Adrian spoke. You were incredible tonight. Naomi held his gaze. Thank you. Adrian's expression softened. I meant every word. Naomi's heart shifted. Dangerous. Again. Everything about this felt dangerous. Adrian moved beside her near the railing. Close. Not touching. But close enough for awareness to sharpen instantly. The city glowed beneath them. Beautiful. Alive. Yet the world around them felt strangely distant. Naomi broke the silence. You've been quiet. Adrian gave a faint smile. That's unusual? Naomi almost smiled. With me? Yes. That made him laugh softly. Then silence returned. He stared at the city below. Then finally spoke. Quietly. Something changed tonight. Naomi's pulse quickened. She looked at him carefully. What do you mean? Adrian remained still. His voice stayed calm. But his words carried weight. I realized something. Naomi felt her heartbeat quicken further. Danger. This conversation felt dangerous. Very dangerous. She swallowed. What? Adrian turned toward her. His grey eyes locked onto hers. Raw. Honest. Intense. And suddenly, Naomi felt trapped by the truth in his gaze. Adrian spoke quietly. Carefully. As though every word mattered. You matter to me. The words landed like a shockwave. Naomi went completely still. Adrian held her gaze. His voice lowered. And that scares me. Silence. The air between them became unbearably heavy. Naomi's heart pounded. Hard. Fast. Too fast. This was happening too quickly. Much too quickly. Adrian continued. For the first time in years, his voice carried real vulnerability. No walls. No mask. Just truth. I don't know what this is. He paused. But I know I haven't felt this connected to anyone in years. Naomi's breathing became shallow, because every word felt too real, too honest, too intimate. Adrian took one careful step closer. Close enough now for the tension to become almost unbearable. His voice softened, and that terrifies me. Naomi's pulse raced. This was everything she feared. Real connection, real vulnerability, real emotional risk. And suddenly, all her old fears rushed back. Pain, betrayal, heartbreak, loss. Her walls shot up instantly. Her expression changed. Adrian noticed. Immediately, the softness disappeared from her eyes, replaced by fear, caution, distance, and Adrian felt it instantly. Something had shifted. Badly. Adrian saw it immediately. The shift. 1 second, Naomi looked open. Soft. Present. The next, her entire energy changed. The warmth vanished from her eyes. Her shoulders stiffened, her body tensed. And just like that, the walls were back. Adrian felt something tighten inside him. He knew that look. Fear, distance, self-protection. Naomi stepped back. Not far, just enough. But the movement said everything. Adrian stayed still. His voice remained calm. Naomi. She looked away, toward the city, anywhere except his eyes. Her heartbeat was pounding, too fast, too loud. This was bad, very bad. Everything inside her was screaming the same warning. Danger, danger, danger. Because this was exactly how it began before. Connection, comfort, emotional intimacy, trust, then pain. Naomi folded her arms tightly. A defensive instinct, Adrian noticed. Of course, he noticed. Silence stretched between them. Heavy, painful. Finally, Naomi spoke. Her voice came low. Tight. This is happening too fast. Adrian remained still. He nodded slightly. Maybe. Naomi turned to face him. Her expression was guarded now. Controlled. But her eyes carried visible conflict. This isn't rational. Adrian frowned slightly. What isn't? Naomi exhaled sharply. This. She gestured between them. This connection. Her voice tightened. We barely know each other. Adrian said nothing. Naomi continued. You're talking about emotional connection like this is normal. A bitter laugh escaped her. It isn't. Adrian held her gaze. Quiet. Steady. Then he spoke. Not everything meaningful happens slowly. Naomi's jaw tightened. That's exactly the kind of thinking that gets people hurt. The words came sharper than intended. Adrian felt them. Naomi saw it immediately. But fear was winning now. Fear always spoke louder than logic. She stepped back again. I can't do this. Adrian's expression hardened slightly. Not anger. Pain. What does that mean? Naomi looked frustrated now. Overwhelmed. It means this is too much. Her voice cracked slightly. Too intense. Adrian stared at her. The hurt inside him grew. Because what he feared was happening. She was running. Naomi shook her head. This isn't healthy. Adrian frowned. Why? Naomi stared at him in disbelief. Why? Her voice rose slightly. Because this kind of intensity feels dangerous. Adrian's jaw tightened. Dangerous. That word again. Naomi continued. Her voice trembled with emotion now. People don't connect this deeply this fast without consequences. Adrian's voice lowered. And what if you're wrong? Silence. Naomi froze. Adrian took one slow step toward her. His eyes locked onto hers. What came next was raw, unfiltered, honest. What if this feels intense because it's real? Naomi's breathing faltered. Adrian continued. What if this scares you because you actually feel it too? Silence. Devastating silence. Because they both knew. He was right. Naomi felt it. Every bit of it. That was the problem. That was exactly the problem. She felt too much. And feeling too much terrified her. Naomi's voice dropped, barely above a whisper. You don't understand. Adrian's expression softened slightly. Then help me understand. Naomi looked away. Tears burned behind her eyes. Her voice shook. When you've loved someone completely. She swallowed. And they break you. A tear slipped down. She wiped it away quickly. You stop trusting your own feelings. Adrian felt his chest tighten. Naomi continued. Her pain now fully visible. You question your instincts. Her voice cracked. You question your judgment. Another tear fell. You question everything. The vulnerability in her voice hit Adrian hard. Naomi finally looked at him. Raw. Broken. Terrified. And I refuse to ignore red flags just because something feels good. Adrian stared at her. Pain flashed across his face. Red flags. That stung deeply. He spoke quietly. "You think I'm a red flag?" Naomi's face tightened. "That's not what I said." Adrian's voice remained calm, but hurt lingered underneath. "It sounds like what you meant." Silence. Naomi hated this, hated all of it, because this wasn't really about Adrian. This was about fear. Her trauma, her wounds. But fear made clarity difficult. Adrian exhaled slowly, then said something that changed everything. His voice was calm, low, painfully honest. "I think you're punishing me for wounds I didn't create." The words landed like a punch. Naomi froze. Completely. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Because Adrian had just said the exact truth. And they both knew it. Naomi stared at him. Speechless. Adrian's grey eyes held pain now. Real pain. He continued quietly. "I understand being afraid." A pause. "I understand protecting yourself." His voice softened. "But there's a difference between caution and self-sabotage." Naomi's heart shattered a little, because every word was true. Painfully true. Adrian stepped back this time. Distance. His walls returning. His expression hardened. Not cold, but guarded. Controlled. Again. The shift hurt Naomi immediately. Adrian spoke one final time. Quiet, measured, honest. "You asked me to be vulnerable." He held her gaze. "So I was." A pause. "And now you're running." Silence. His voice dropped lower. "And that tells me you're just as scared as I am." Naomi couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Adrian stared at her for one long moment. Then he gave a small nod, as if accepting something painful. "I think you need space." His voice remained controlled. Too controlled. That hurt more somehow. He turned, walked toward the terrace doors, then stopped briefly without looking back, and said, quietly, "For what it's worth." A painful pause followed. Then, "I wish you trusted what's happening between us." And then he walked away, leaving Naomi alone on the terrace, completely shattered. The city lights blurred through her tears. Her breathing shook, because deep down, she knew the truth. Adrian was right. She wasn't running from him. She was running from fear. And for the first time in a long time, Naomi hated what fear was making her become. 3 days passed. 3 painfully long days. And Adrian Whitmore disappeared. Not literally. He was still around. Still working. Still attending meetings. Still managing his empire. But as far as Naomi was concerned, he was gone. Completely. No breakfast visits. No meaningful conversations. No quiet moments. Nothing. The distance was immediate, intentional, and painfully obvious. Naomi felt it everywhere. In the silence. In the absence. In the way the penthouse suddenly felt colder. Emptier. Too quiet. And the worst part? She missed him. Terribly. Naomi stood near the guest suite window, staring down at Manhattan. The city looked the same. Busy. Alive. Unbothered. Meanwhile, everything inside her felt unsettled. Miserable. Restless. She hated this feeling. She hated missing him. She hated thinking about him. She hated replaying their last conversation over and over in her head. Especially one sentence. "I think you're punishing me for wounds I didn't create." She closed her eyes. Pain tightened in her chest. Because Adrian was right. Completely right. She had been unfair. Fear had taken over. And instead of trusting what was real, she ran. Just like she always did when something felt too vulnerable. Her phone buzzed. Mia. Naomi answered immediately. Mia's voice came through. "Well?" Naomi sighed. "Well what?" Mia groaned. "Don't do that." Naomi leaned against the window. "What?" "I know that voice." Silence. Mia's voice softened. "What happened?" Naomi closed her eyes. A long silence followed. Then she whispered, "I messed up." Mia said nothing. She waited. Naomi exhaled shakily. Then, everything poured out. Meeting Adrian. The connection. The terrace conversation. The fear. The argument. The distance. Everything. When Naomi finished, silence filled the call. Then Mia finally spoke, and her voice was calm, careful. "You like him?" Naomi's eyes filled. She laughed bitterly. "That's your response?" Mia stayed calm. "Yes." Naomi swallowed hard. Mia continued. "No, actually. Say." A pause. "You don't just like him." Her voice softened. "You care about him." Naomi looked away, toward the city. Tears burned again. Mia continued. "And that terrifies you." Silence. Naomi whispered, "Yes." The word came broken, honest, painful. Mia's voice softened further. "Why?" Naomi's tears finally fell. "Because I can't survive that kind of pain again." There it was. The truth. Raw. Unfiltered. Naomi's voice shook. "I can't go through that again, Mia." Tears streamed down her face now. Her walls were gone. All that remained was fear. Real fear. Mia listened quietly, then spoke with gentle firmness. "Naomi." Silence. "You're confusing vulnerability with danger." Naomi froze. Mia continued, "Those are not the same thing." The words hit instantly, hard. Naomi said nothing. Mia's voice stayed calm. "Yes, vulnerability is scary." A pause. "Yes, love carries risk." Another pause. "But that doesn't automatically make it dangerous." Silence. Naomi's heart pounded, because those words felt painfully important. Mia continued, "You know what I think?" Naomi wiped her tears. "What?" Mia's answer came without hesitation. "I think Adrian scares you because he sees you." Silence. Mia continued, "He sees past the strong therapist, past the calm voice, past the confidence." Her voice softened. "He sees Naomi." A painful silence followed, because Mia was right. Again, Naomi's voice broke. "What if I'm wrong?" Mia asked gently. "About what?" Naomi swallowed hard. "About him." Her voice shook. "What if I trust this?" What? A pause. "And he destroys me." Silence. Mia's answer came softly. "What if he doesn't?" The question hit like lightning. Naomi froze, speechless, because fear had trapped her inside one possibility. Pain, loss, heartbreak. She had never truly considered the other possibility. Love. Real love. Healthy love. Safe love. Mia continued, "What if Adrian isn't your past?" Naomi's breathing slowed. Mia's voice softened. "What if he's something different?" Silence. Heavy. Meaningful. Then Mia asked the question Naomi had been avoiding. "Do you want to lose him?" Naomi's heart shattered. The answer came instantly, clearly, painfully. No, she didn't. She didn't want distance. She didn't want silence. She didn't want this emptiness. She missed him. Missed his voice, his honesty, his presence, his eyes. Naomi whispered brokenly, "No." Mia's voice softened. "Then stop letting fear make your decisions." The words landed deeply, very deeply. Naomi sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, emotionally exhausted, but clearer, much clearer. For the first time in days, she faced the truth, not about Adrian, about herself. She was afraid, terrified, but fear had been controlling her, and fear was costing her something precious, maybe something worth fighting for. That evening, Naomi made a decision. No more running, no more hiding behind fear, no more pretending distance was protecting her, because the truth had become impossible to ignore. She missed Adrian, more than she wanted to admit, and what hurt most wasn't his absence. It was knowing she had caused it. Naomi stood outside Adrian's private office, inside the penthouse. Her heart pounded hard against her chest. Her palms felt slightly cold. She stared at the closed door, nervous, terrified. This felt harder than she expected. Much harder, because apologizing meant vulnerability. It meant honesty. It meant lowering her defenses. And Naomi Carter had spent years mastering emotional control. Now she had to do the exact opposite. She lifted her hand, knocked, silence. Then Adrian's voice came from inside, calm, controlled. "Come in." Naomi inhaled deeply, then opened the door. Adrian sat behind his desk, reviewing documents. The city lights glowed behind him. For a moment, he didn't look up. Then he did, and everything changed. Their eyes met. Naomi felt it instantly. That familiar pull, that unbearable tension. Still there, still strong, still dangerous. Adrian's expression remained unreadable. Too calm, too controlled. That hurt more than anger would have. Naomi stepped inside slowly. Adrian set the document down. Silence filled the room. Neither spoke. Finally, Adrian broke the silence. His voice was neutral. "Naomi." Just her name, nothing more. No warmth, no softness, distance. She felt it, immediately. It hurt. Naomi swallowed. "I need to talk to you." Adrian held her gaze, then gave one short nod. "Okay." Silence. Naomi suddenly felt every word she had rehearsed disappear. This was harder than she thought. Much harder. Adrian waited. Calm. Patient. Unreadable. Naomi exhaled shakily, then began. I'm sorry. The words came quiet, honest, raw. Adrian said nothing. Naomi forced herself to continue. What happened on the terrace? Her voice trembled slightly. I handled it badly. Silence. Adrian remained still, listening. Naomi's voice softened. You were honest with me. A pause. You were vulnerable. Her eyes lowered. And I punished you for it. The words hurt to say, because they were true, painfully true. Adrian's expression shifted slightly, only slightly. Naomi continued. I let fear take over. Tears burned behind her eyes. Her voice shook now. I made what was happening between us feel wrong because I was scared. Silence. Heavy. Naomi finally looked at him. Her eyes glistened. You were right. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. Naomi swallowed hard. I was punishing you for pain you didn't cause. A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it quickly. I'm sorry. The room felt painfully still. Adrian stared at her, long, quietly. Then, finally, he spoke. His voice was calm, low, honest. You hurt me. The words landed hard. Naomi's chest tightened painfully, because he said it without anger, without accusation, just truth, raw truth. Adrian leaned back slightly. His expression remained controlled, but his eyes carried visible pain. When I opened up to you, his voice softened. That wasn't easy for me. Naomi felt tears return. Adrian continued. I'm not used to saying what I feel. A pause. I'm definitely not used to needing someone. The honesty in his voice shattered something inside her. Adrian held her gaze. And when you pulled away... He paused. His jaw tightened. It felt like confirmation. Naomi frowned through tears. Confirmation of what? Adrian's voice dropped. That vulnerability is dangerous. Silence. Naomi's heart broke, because she understood exactly what he meant. Her reaction had reinforced his deepest fear. Adrian looked away briefly, toward the city, then back at her. His voice lowered further. You asked me to trust what was happening between us. A painful pause. So I did. Another pause. And then you made me feel foolish for doing that. The words shattered Naomi. Completely. Tears fell freely now, because every word was deserved. Every word was true. Naomi stepped closer. Her voice broke. I know. Adrian stayed silent. Naomi shook her head. No. Her tears fell harder. I don't think you understand. Her voice cracked. I hate that I hurt you. Adrian's expression shifted slightly. The walls in Naomi were gone now. Completely gone. All that remained was truth. Raw truth. Naomi's voice trembled. You scare me, Adrian. Silence. Adrian watched her carefully. Naomi continued. Not looking away. Not hiding. Not running. You scare me because this feels real. Her breathing shook. Too real. Another tear fell. You scare me because when I'm with you... She swallowed. I feel seen. Silence. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. And being seen means I can get hurt again. The confession hit Adrian deeply. Naomi continued through tears. That terrifies me. Silence. Heavy. Powerful. Then Naomi said the deepest truth of all. The truth she could no longer deny. Her voice broke completely. But losing you scares me more. The room went silent. Completely silent. Adrian froze. His heart slammed hard against his chest. Because that one sentence changed everything. Naomi stood there trembling, crying, completely exposed. No walls, no defenses, no mask, just honesty. And for the first time, Adrian saw Naomi doing exactly what he had asked. She wasn't running anymore. She was staying, even though she was terrified. And somehow, that meant everything. The silence inside Adrian's office felt sacred, heavy, still, honest. Naomi's words hung in the air like truth neither of them could ignore. Losing you scares me more. Adrian stared at her. His heartbeat had not slowed, neither had hers. For several long seconds, neither spoke, neither moved, because something important had shifted, again. But this time, it felt different. This wasn't just emotional tension. This wasn't attraction. This wasn't fear. This was clarity. Painful, beautiful, necessary clarity. Naomi had stopped running, and Adrian could see it, clearly. She stood before him trembling slightly, tears still on her face, completely vulnerable. No walls, no defenses, just truth. And somehow, that affected Adrian more than anything else ever had. Because he understood what this cost her. He understood how hard this moment was for her. She was doing something terrifying. Choosing honesty despite fear. Choosing vulnerability despite pain. Choosing to stay. Adrian rose slowly from his chair. Naomi's breathing caught. He walked toward her carefully. Not rushing. Not overwhelming. Just steady. Intentional. When he stopped in front of her, the tension between them became almost unbearable. His eyes held hers. Quiet. Deep. Honest. Then Adrian spoke. Softly. Raw. You stayed. Naomi swallowed hard. A tear slipped down her cheek. Yes. Adrian's chest tightened. Because those two letters carried enormous weight. He raised his hand slowly, carefully, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers brushed gently against her cheek as he wiped away her tears. Naomi's breath caught. The touch was soft, tender, unexpectedly gentle. And somehow, that simple gesture shattered the remaining distance between them. Adrian's voice dropped lower. You have no idea what that means to me. Naomi's eyes filled again. Adrian held her gaze. Then he said something neither of them expected. Something deeply honest. Something life-changing. I don't think love is supposed to feel easy. Naomi blinked. Adrian's expression softened. I think people romanticize love too much. His voice stayed low, thoughtful. They think if something is real, it should feel effortless. He shook his head slightly. But I don't believe that anymore. Silence. Naomi listened carefully. Adrian continued. I think real love forces you to confront yourself. The words landed heavily. He held her gaze. It exposes your wounds. A pause. Your fears. Another pause. Your emotional patterns. Naomi felt those words deeply. Because they were true. Painfully true. Adrian's voice softened further. And that's terrifying. Silence. Naomi whispered, yes. Adrian nodded slowly. He understood. Completely. Then he said something that changed the atmosphere entirely. His voice was calm. Grounded. Certain. But I don't want us to build something from fear. Naomi stared at him. Adrian continued. If this becomes about constantly reacting from old wounds. A pause. We'll destroy something good before it even begins. The truth of those words hit both of them. Hard. Because they had already seen it happen. Fear had nearly ruined everything. Naomi looked down briefly. Then back at him. Her voice came soft. Honest. So what do we do? Adrian was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he answered. Not as a billionaire. Not as a man used to controlling outcomes. Just as Adrian. A man learning. Growing. Healing. His voice remained low. Honest. We stop expecting each other to fix what we didn't break. Naomi froze. The words hit instantly. Deeply. Adrian held her gaze. We take responsibility for our own healing. Silence. His expression softened. And we choose honesty. Naomi felt something shift inside her. Because this was different. Very different. This wasn't fantasy. This wasn't emotional dependency. This was mature. Healthy. Grounded. Adrian continued. No mind games. A pause. No running. Another pause. No pretending. Naomi felt tears rise again. But these tears felt different. Not from pain, from relief. Adrian's voice softened further. If something scares us. He paused. We talk. Silence. Powerful silence. Naomi whispered. That sounds hard. Adrian surprised her with a small smile. It will be. Naomi almost smiled. Adrian continued. Love without self-awareness becomes chaos. The statement landed with profound weight. He held her gaze. But love with honesty? A pause. With emotional responsibility? His expression softened. That can heal people. The room fell silent. Naomi felt her heart swell painfully. Because this was what she had always wanted. Not perfection. Not fantasy. Not effortless romance. This. Two imperfect people choosing growth. Choosing truth. Choosing emotional responsibility. She looked at Adrian. Really looked at him. And for the first time, she saw something beautiful. Not a billionaire. Not a powerful businessman. Just a man brave enough to face himself. And that moved her deeply. Naomi finally spoke. Her voice soft. Steady. I think we both have healing to do. Adrian nodded. Yes. Naomi swallowed. Then smiled faintly through tears. But maybe. She paused. Maybe we don't have to do all of it alone. Adrian's expression softened instantly. Something warm passed through his eyes. Something profound. Something peaceful. And in that moment, for the first time, both of them stopped seeing love as something to fear, and started seeing it as something that could help them grow. For the first time since meeting each other, peace settled between them. Not perfect peace. Not the kind that meant all fear had disappeared. No, their fears still existed. Their wounds still existed. The difference was this: neither of them was hiding anymore, and somehow, honesty changed everything. Naomi looked at Adrian. Really looked at him. The sharp billionaire image was still there. The tailored clothes. The composed posture. The controlled presence. But now, she saw something else. Warmth. Depth. Humanity. And beneath all of that, a man who was trying to unlearn years of emotional isolation, trying to trust, trying to let someone in. That mattered to her, more than perfection ever could. Naomi exhaled softly, then asked quietly, "Can I ask you something?" Adrian's gaze stayed on hers. "Yes." Naomi hesitated, then asked the question carefully. "What scares you the most?" Silence. Adrian's expression shifted slightly. The question was simple, but the answer wasn't. He looked away briefly, toward the city lights, thinking. Then finally he answered. His voice was quiet, honest, needing someone. Naomi's heart tightened. Adrian continued. "I know how to function alone." His jaw tightened slightly. "I know how to survive alone." A pause. "I've built my entire life around self-reliance." His voice dropped lower. "Depending on someone feels dangerous." Naomi listened closely. Adrian continued. "Because if someone matters enough..." He paused. "They gain the power to hurt you." Silence. Naomi felt those words deeply. Because she understood. Perfectly. Adrian turned back to her. His grey eyes carried rare vulnerability. "And you?" Naomi exhaled slowly. She answered honestly. "Being loved halfway." Adrian went still. Naomi swallowed hard. Her voice softened. "I think betrayal changed something in me." A pause. "It made me afraid of inconsistency." Another pause. "Afraid of emotional uncertainty." Her eyes held his. "Afraid of giving everything to someone who gives me only pieces." Silence. Adrian stared at her. Because those words felt painfully honest. Naomi's voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't want to be loved halfway." The confession landed deeply. Adrian stepped closer. Slowly. Intentionally. His voice came soft. "Certain. You shouldn't be." Naomi's breath caught. Adrian held her gaze. His voice lowered. "No one deserves that." Silence. Charged. Soft. Meaningful. Adrian continued. "If I choose this..." A pause. "If I choose you..." Naomi's pulse quickened instantly. Adrian's eyes remained locked on hers. His voice carried quiet conviction. "I won't do it halfway." Those words shattered something inside Naomi. Not painfully, beautifully. Because for the first time in a long time, she believed him. Not because he was perfect, but because he was honest, grounded, intentional. Naomi's eyes filled with tears again. Not from sadness, from relief. Adrian noticed. His expression softened immediately. Then he asked quietly, "What do you need from me?" The question stunned Naomi. Because very few people asked that. Very few people genuinely wanted to know. She thought carefully. Then answered, honestly. "I need consistency." Adrian nodded slowly. Naomi continued. "I need honesty." A pause. "I need emotional presence." Her voice softened. "And when things get hard..." She swallowed. "I need communication." Silence. Adrian absorbed every word. Carefully. Seriously. Then he gave a small nod. "Okay?" Naomi blinked. "Okay?" Adrian's lips curved slightly. "Yes." That almost made her laugh. Naomi raised an eyebrow. "That simple?" Adrian's expression softened. "No." His voice dropped. "Not simple." A pause. "But clear." Silence. Then Adrian said something that made Naomi's heart stop. His voice remained calm. Steady, but deeply vulnerable. "I'm willing to learn how to love you well." The words landed with devastating emotional force. Naomi froze. Because that was everything. Not grand promises, not empty romance, not dramatic speeches, just intention, commitment, willingness, growth, real love. Naomi felt tears slip quietly down her face. Adrian moved closer again. Now only inches separated them. Neither moved. Neither spoke. The air felt warm, sacred. Then Adrian spoke softly. Naomi. Her breathing faltered. Yes? His voice dropped lower. Raw. Honest. I don't know what this becomes. A pause. But I know this. His eyes searched hers. I don't want to keep pretending you don't matter. Naomi's heartbeat pounded wildly. Adrian's voice softened. And I don't want fear making decisions for us anymore. Silence. Then Naomi whispered, I don't either. The words barely left her lips before everything changed. Adrian lifted his hand. Gently. Carefully. His fingers brushed lightly along her jaw. Naomi's breath caught. Her eyes searched his. He gave her time. Space. Choice. And, in that moment, Naomi understood something powerful. This was what safety felt like. Not pressure. Not force. Choice. Respect. Emotional presence. She made her choice. Slowly, Naomi closed the distance. And Adrian met her halfway. Their first kiss was soft, gentle, tender, not rushed, not desperate, just honest. It felt like truth, like peace, like two wounded hearts finally choosing trust. And somehow, it felt exactly right. The kiss changed everything. And yet, it changed nothing. Not in the way romantic movies often promised. Their wounds didn't magically disappear. Their fears didn't suddenly vanish. The past didn't stop existing. No, something far more meaningful happened. They chose honesty. And somehow, that changed everything. Naomi stood close to Adrian, her heart still racing from the kiss. The city lights glowed around them. Soft, beautiful, quiet. She looked into his eyes and saw something unfamiliar there. Peace. A kind of peace she hadn't seen in him before. Adrian looked different too. Softer, lighter, as if something heavy inside him had finally shifted. For the first time in years, Adrian Whitmore felt still. Not restless, not emotionally guarded. Still, present, and, strangely, that peace scared him. Because peace meant surrender. It meant accepting that control no longer ruled everything. And Adrian had spent his entire life relying on control. Naomi noticed the subtle shift in his expression, the way his thoughts seemed to drift inward. She studied him carefully. What are you thinking? Adrian exhaled slowly. A faint smile touched his lips. Too many things. Naomi's lips curved softly. That sounds about right. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her. And suddenly, he felt something deeper than fear. Truth. A truth he could no longer avoid. He had fallen, completely. Not because Naomi was perfect. Not because she healed him. Not because she saved him. No, he loved her, because around her, he had become honest. Because she challenged him. Because she saw him. Because she made him confront himself. Because she made him want to grow. And that realization shook him deeply. Adrian spoke quietly. Naomi, her expression softened. Yes? Adrian held her gaze. Then said something raw, unexpected, honest. You changed me. Naomi blinked. Adrian's voice stayed low, steady, real. You changed the way I see myself. Silence. Naomi listened carefully. Adrian continued. I used to think strength meant carrying everything alone. His jaw tightened slightly. I thought needing no one made me powerful. He shook his head slowly. But now... His voice softened. I'm realizing isolation isn't strength. Silence. He looked directly into her eyes. It's survival. The truth hit both of them. Hard. Because it was painfully accurate. Adrian continued. And survival is not the same as living. Naomi felt emotion rise in her chest. Adrian's voice dropped further. For years, I wasn't living. A pause. I was functioning. Another pause. I was succeeding. His expression shifted. Pain, truth, honesty. But I wasn't connected. Silence. Naomi's eyes filled. Adrian's voice remained steady. And then you happened. Those 4 words shattered something inside Naomi. Her heart swelled painfully. Adrian's expression softened. You walked into my life in the most ridiculous way possible. That made Naomi laugh through tears. Adrian smiled faintly. Then his voice turned serious again. But somehow... A pause. You made me feel something I haven't felt in years. Silence. Naomi whispered. What? Adrian held her gaze. His voice was barely above a whisper now. Alive. The word landed with immense emotional force. Naomi stared at him, because she understood exactly what he meant. Adrian's breathing slowed. His walls were gone now. Completely gone. No image, no performance, no billionaire mask. Just Adrian. Raw, open, vulnerable. He spoke again. This terrifies me. Naomi's heart tightened. Adrian continued. His voice shook slightly for the first time. Real emotion. Real vulnerability. Because I care about you more than I know how to explain. Silence. Heavy. Sacred. Adrian swallowed. Then came the deepest truth. The one he had been avoiding. The one he could no longer hide. His voice broke slightly. And losing you would destroy me. Naomi froze. Completely. The confession hit like a wave. Powerful. Raw. Devastatingly honest. Because Adrian Whitmore, the man who controlled everything, had just admitted his deepest fear. Loss. Real loss. Emotional loss. Naomi stared at him, speechless, because this was absolute vulnerability. No defenses. No control. Just love. And fear. Intertwined. Human. Real. Adrian exhaled shakily, then gave a faint, humorless smile. Well? A brief pause. There it is. Naomi's lips trembled. Tears streamed down her face. Because she knew what this moment cost him. She knew how difficult this was, and somehow that made his honesty feel even more beautiful. Adrian looked at her quietly, waiting, not expecting anything, just truth. Always truth. And Naomi knew this moment mattered. Deeply. Because what she said next could change everything. Naomi stood completely still. Her tears fell silently, but she didn't wipe them away. Not this time. Adrian's confession still echoed inside her. Losing you would destroy me. The words carried enormous weight. Not because they were dramatic, but because they were real. Painfully real. This was Adrian Whitmore, stripped of every layer. No wealth, no status, no control, no image. Just a man standing before the woman he loved, admitting his deepest fear. And Naomi understood exactly what that cost him. Because vulnerability had always terrified him. Yet, here he was. Choosing honesty. Choosing love. Choosing her. Naomi's heart swelled painfully. She looked at him through blurred vision. And in that moment, something became clear. Love had never really been her greatest fear. No, her greatest fear was pain. Loss. Heartbreak. Betrayal. But somewhere along the way, she had confused love with suffering. She had convinced herself that love and pain always came together. That opening her heart automatically meant destruction. And Adrian had changed that. Not because he removed risk, but because he showed her something different. Love could be safe. Not because it guaranteed no pain, but because it created honesty, consistency, emotional responsibility, presence. Naomi stepped closer, slowly, her eyes never leaving his. Adrian stayed still, waiting, listening, present. Naomi finally spoke. Her voice trembled, soft, raw, honest. I need you to hear something. Adrian's gaze softened. I'm listening. Naomi swallowed hard. Then the truth came. I've been angry at love for a long time. Silence. Her voice shook. Not just at what happened to me. A pause. At love itself. Adrian listened carefully. Naomi continued. I blamed love for my pain. Tears streamed down her face. I blamed vulnerability. Her breathing trembled. I blamed trust. Silence. Then came deeper truth. Her voice cracked. But the truth is... She paused. Her chest rose and fell shakily. The betrayal broke me. Another pause. But fear kept me broken. The words landed heavily. Even Naomi felt the weight of them. Because she had never said that aloud before, not even to herself. Adrian's heart tightened painfully. Naomi's voice softened further. For years, I thought fear was protecting me. She shook her head slowly. But it wasn't. A tear slipped down. It was isolating me. Silence. Her eyes locked onto Adrian's. Raw. Open. Completely vulnerable. Then came the confession. The deepest truth. The truth she could no longer deny. Her voice broke. And then you happened. Adrian's breath caught. Naomi gave a tearful laugh. In the most ridiculous way possible. That made him smile faintly. But his eyes remained emotional. Naomi's expression softened. Then her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You walked into my life and ruined every defense I built. Adrian's chest tightened. Naomi continued. You saw through me. A pause. You challenged me. Another pause. You scared me. Her voice shook. Because you made me feel again. Silence. Powerful silence. Then Naomi said the words Adrian needed to hear most. Her voice trembled with emotion. But You also reminded me that love isn't supposed to feel like survival. Adrian's heart slammed against his chest. Naomi stepped even closer. Now only inches separated them. Her voice softened. It's supposed to feel like truth. A pause. Like growth. Another pause. Like peace. Tears filled Adrian's eyes. He didn't look away. Naomi's voice broke completely now, because there was only one truth left. The biggest truth. The one she could no longer hide. Her lips trembled. Then, I love you, Adrian. Silence. Everything stopped. The city, the world, time itself. Adrian froze, because despite everything, hearing those words still shook him completely. Naomi cried openly now. No walls, no fear, just love, raw, honest, real. Her voice trembled. I love you. Another tear fell. And I'm terrified. A painful smile touched her lips. But I don't want fear deciding my life anymore. Silence. Her eyes stayed locked on his. So, yes. A shaky breath. This scares me. A pause. But I choose you. The words shattered Adrian. Completely. Emotion flooded him so fast he almost couldn't breathe. Because this was everything. Not perfection. Not fantasy. Choice. Conscious choice. Two imperfect people choosing each other. Choosing honesty. Choosing growth. Choosing love. Adrian closed the final distance between them. He pulled Naomi into his arms. And this time, she held him just as tightly. No hesitation. No fear. Just surrender. Real surrender. Naomi buried her face against his chest. His arms tightened around her. And for the first time in years, both of them felt something neither had felt in a very long time. Safe. Truly safe. Not because life had become certain. Not because pain could never happen again. But because they were no longer hiding. No longer pretending. No longer running. And somehow, that changed everything. Adrian lowered his head gently against hers. His voice came quiet. Full of emotion. Full of truth. I love you too. 3 simple words. But they carried everything. Everything. 6 months later, morning sunlight poured through the glass walls of Adrian's penthouse. The Manhattan skyline shimmered under golden light. The city moved with its usual rhythm. Busy. Loud. Alive. But inside the penthouse, everything felt different. Peaceful. Warm. Alive in a completely different way. Adrian stood in the kitchen. Sleeves rolled up, focused on making coffee. Something that once would have seemed almost absurd. Adrian Whitmore, billionaire businessman, empire builder, standing in his kitchen making coffee with quiet concentration. But life had changed. Profoundly. Not overnight. Not magically. Slowly. Intentionally. Honestly. That was the difference. Love had not fixed Adrian. Naomi had not magically healed every wound inside him. Instead, something healthier had happened. Love had exposed what needed healing. And Adrian chose to do the work. Real work. Hard work. He had started therapy. Not because Naomi asked him to. Not because someone pressured him. Because he wanted to understand himself better. Because he wanted to love better. Because he finally understood something important. Success in business meant very little if he failed emotionally in life. That realization changed everything. A voice behind him broke his thoughts. You're thinking too hard again. Adrian smiled before turning around. Naomi stood there, wearing one of his oversized shirts. Her curls were slightly messy from sleep. Beautiful, natural, real. And somehow, Adrian thought she had never looked more beautiful. Not in expensive dresses. Not under ballroom lights. Here, like this. Peaceful. Safe. Home. The word hit him unexpectedly. Home. For years, this penthouse had felt cold. Beautiful, but empty. Now, it felt alive. Because she was here. Adrian's smile softened. That obvious? Naomi walked toward him. Very slowly. Her lips curved with warmth. Yes. Adrian handed her coffee. She accepted it with a grateful smile. Then leaned lightly against the kitchen counter. Silence settled between them. Soft silence. Comfortable silence. The kind that only exists between people who truly know each other. Naomi took a sip, then smiled. This is good. Adrian raised an eyebrow. Good? Naomi smiled. That's high praise. Adrian laughed softly. That laugh still affected Naomi, because it reminded her how much he had changed. Or perhaps, how much he had allowed himself to become. Softer, warmer, more emotionally present. Still Adrian. Still sharp. Still disciplined. Still powerful. But now, there was openness too. presence, emotional honesty. And that mattered more than anything. Naomi studied him carefully, then asked softly, "How's therapy going?" Adrian's expression softened. He answered honestly, "Hard." Naomi smiled slightly. "That means it's working." That made him laugh. Then Adrian leaned against the counter beside her. Close, comfortable. He looked out at the city, then spoke quietly. "It's strange." Naomi looked at him. "What is?" Adrian thought for a moment, then answered, "I spent years mastering external success." His voice remained calm, thoughtful. Discipline, strategy, leadership. He paused. But emotional growth. A faint smile touched his lips. "That's a completely different kind of work." Naomi listened. Adrian's expression softened. "It's harder." A pause, but more rewarding. Silence. Naomi's heart warmed, because this was what growth looked like. Not perfection. Awareness. Responsibility. Intentional effort. Adrian turned toward her. His grey eyes softened. "You changed my definition of strength." Naomi blinked. Adrian continued quietly. "I used to think strength meant control." A pause. "Now I think strength means honesty." Silence. Naomi felt emotion rise inside her. Adrian's voice softened further. "Being honest about fear." A pause. "About wounds." Another pause. "About needs." His eyes held hers. That changed everything. Naomi's chest tightened, because Adrian had changed her too, profoundly. She looked down briefly, then back at him. Her voice came soft. "You changed me too." Adrian studied her. "How?" Naomi smiled faintly, then answered with complete honesty. "You taught me that fear sounds wise sometimes." Adrian frowned slightly. Naomi continued. "It disguises itself as caution." A pause. "As logic." Another pause. "As self-protection." She held his gaze. "But often..." Her voice softened. "It's just fear asking for control." Silence. Adrian felt the truth in every word. Naomi smiled gently. "You taught me that healing doesn't mean becoming fearless." Her voice warmed. "It means learning not to let fear lead." Adrian stared at her, deeply moved, because that was exactly what both of them had learned. And somehow, that lesson changed their entire relationship. No pretending, no perfection, just truth, growth, honesty, effort, real love. Naomi moved closer, very close. She rested her head lightly against his chest. Adrian wrapped an arm around her instinctively. Peace settled around them. The city buzzed below. But inside this moment, everything felt still. And for the first time in a very long time, Adrian Whitmore felt completely at peace. The morning passed quietly, peacefully. No rush, no chaos. Just two people existing in a kind of calm neither had known before. Later that evening, Adrian and Naomi sat together on the penthouse terrace. The Manhattan skyline stretched endlessly before them. Golden sunset slowly melted into shades of orange and deep blue. The city glowed beneath them. Beautiful, alive, timeless. Naomi sat beside Adrian with her legs tucked beneath her. A soft breeze moved through her curls. Adrian watched the skyline quietly. Lost in thought, Naomi noticed. She always noticed. She smiled softly. "You're thinking again." Adrian glanced at her. A faint smile touched his lips. "That obvious?" Naomi laughed softly. "Yes." Adrian looked back at the city. Silence stretched between them. Comfortable, warm. Then Adrian finally spoke. His voice was calm, reflective, honest. "I've been thinking about the night we met." Naomi smiled immediately. "That disaster?" Adrian laughed. "Yes." Naomi shook her head with amusement. "You walking in on me changing remains one of the most embarrassing moments of my life." Adrian smiled. "One of the most important moments of mine." Naomi looked at him. Her heart softened instantly. Adrian's expression shifted, becoming thoughtful again. His voice lowered. "You know something strange?" Naomi studied him. "What?" Adrian looked at her. His grey eyes held quiet depth. "For years, I thought love was about finding the right person." Silence. Naomi listened carefully. Adrian continued. "I thought, if I met someone perfect..." A faint smile touched his lips. "Everything would just work." He shook his head. "But now?" His voice softened. "Now I think love is much deeper than that." The city lights glowed around them. Naomi remained still, listening. Adrian's gaze stayed on hers. And then he spoke the final truth. The deepest truth. The lesson that changed everything. His voice was quiet, certain, powerful. I think love is becoming the kind of person who knows how to love well. Silence. The words settled deeply between them. Naomi felt emotion rise instantly. Because that was it. That was everything. The lesson. The truth. The meaning of everything they had experienced. Love wasn't just about chemistry, or attraction, or passion. It wasn't just about finding the right person. It was also about becoming the right person. Emotionally aware, honest, present, responsible, open, willing to grow. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. Not painful tears, beautiful ones. She reached for his hand. Their fingers intertwined naturally. Then Naomi spoke. Her voice soft, warm, honest. I used to think love was mostly about safety. Adrian listened quietly. Naomi continued. I wanted certainty. A faint smile touched her lips. I wanted guarantees. She laughed softly. But love doesn't work that way. Adrian's lips curved slightly. Naomi looked at him. Her voice softened. Real love doesn't offer certainty. A pause. It offers choice. Another pause. Choice to stay. Her fingers tightened gently around his hand. Choice to communicate. Another pause. Choice to grow. Silence. The city buzzed quietly below. Naomi's voice lowered. And choice to love each other honestly. Adrian stared at her, deeply moved. Then Naomi smiled softly. And somehow, a tear slipped down. Her voice trembled slightly. That feels better than perfection. Adrian's chest tightened. Because he felt it too. Completely. Perfect love never existed. Real love did. Messy, human, imperfect, beautiful. Adrian lifted her hand gently and kissed it. Naomi smiled. Then she asked softly, So? A playful warmth entered her eyes. What are we? Adrian smiled. A real smile. Warm, peaceful, full of love. Then he answered, simply, perfectly. Two imperfect people learning how to love honestly. Naomi smiled through tears. And somehow, that felt better than any fairy tale. Because this wasn't fantasy. This was real. Real love. Real growth. Real peace. They sat together in silence as night settled over Manhattan. No promises of perfection. No illusion of certainty. Just love. Honest love. The kind built through truth. Through vulnerability. Through emotional responsibility. Through courage. The future remained unwritten. As all futures are. Life would still have challenges. Difficult moments. Misunderstandings. Pain. Growth. But now, they understood something important. Love was not about avoiding pain completely. It was about choosing someone willing to face life honestly with you. And perhaps, that was love, at its most beautiful. Not perfection, not certainty, presence. Two people brave enough to be fully seen, and brave enough to stay together. And for the first time in years, neither Adrian nor Naomi felt lonely. Not because they had completed each other, but because they had learned something far more powerful. Love does not save us by removing all pain. It changes us by teaching us how to live more honestly. And sometimes, the most life-changing love stories begin with the most unexpected moments. A wrong door, an awkward encounter, a shocking first meeting, and two wounded hearts brave enough to choose healing over fear. What a beautiful journey. Adrian and Naomi's story reminds us that real love isn't about perfection. It's about honesty, growth, healing, and choosing each other even when vulnerability feels terrifying. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What lesson did this story teach you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson for more powerful love stories filled with life lessons and emotional healing. Until next time, remember this: the right love won't demand perfection. It will inspire growth.